Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, May 20th meeting of the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board. We are adding bringing up one item at the end of the meeting this evening, and that was the timeline extension that was requested by Alex Zaney, and I think you may have gotten a copy of that. So we'll add that at the end of the agenda this evening. You have received Jim's meeting notes. Has everybody had a chance to review them and look at them? Any comments or questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to accept the meeting notes? Thank you, Ed. A second?
Sean.
Thanks, Sean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The May 6 minutes came to you in draft form. If you've all had a chance to look at them, have you found any corrections, omissions that you'd like to add? Hearing none, may I hear a motion to accept the May 6 minutes? Motion. Thank you, Sharon. Second?
Sean.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. Any correspondence or announcements that need to come before the planning board? My only announcement is to welcome Tom Weber, who is joining the planning board. The seat has been vacant since Michael's term expired at the end of December, and we're very pleased to welcome Tom. Looking forward to working with you. It's a 7-year term, some of you might know. We've been a long time to be working together. We're looking forward to it. The first new application this evening, I am expecting, by the way, Craig. I haven't heard that he's not coming, but we do have a quorum, so we're fine to go ahead. The first new application this evening is Gretchen Vonderleaf and Georgette Hall, 563 Primrose Hill Road for a minor subdivision. Hi, Patrick.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Hello, Rhinebeck Planning Board. My name is Patrick Miglio. I'm a licensed land surveyor. I was born in Northern Dutchess and went through Rhinebeck schools. So I've been around a while. I'm joined by the Vonderleaf family, which is one of the owners on this project. We're talking about 20 acres on the corner of Primrose Hill and 9G. It's currently 20 acres with a house, a barn, and a couple sheds spread out that Gretchen's sister actually lives in, and Gretchen and her sister grew up there. Their father bought the land many, many years ago, in the 40s, I believe. And the Vonderleaf Hall family's been there ever since. Their father actually provided the land for 9G when it went through. And today we're looking to split up the land a little more to continue to allow the family to build homes and live there. Excuse me. You can see this lot 1, file map 9705. That was subdivided from the original family property in 1993 so that the Halls could build their home. So just to be clear, one owner lives in the existing house here and the other owner lives there. We're proposing to make 3 lots out of the 20 acres. One with the existing house, kind of a 5-acre lot in the middle with frontage on Primrose, and then a 10-acre lot would be the remainder of the lot. The purpose of the subdivision, lot 2 is kind of a 5-acre parcel for future development. Just while they were going through this process, they wanted to create another lot. And lot 3, the 10-acre lot, Brian Hall, Georgette's son and Gretchen's nephew, would like to build his own house there and continue to live in the area. I think it's a fairly straightforward, it's a pretty good project. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Jim?
I took a look at it. I don't really have any major issues. I think we're in pretty good shape. There are 2 5-acre lots on here, and we need to make sure that there's at least a minimum of 3.75 acres in the RC5 for a developable area. I don't think there's a problem there. We meet that. We have received a letter from the engineer stating they have confidence water and septic can be located on each lot, so we don't need county health department approval for that when the lots are at least 5 acres. I think all the requested information we talked about in the pre-con has been submitted. The only 2 things that I did want to note is that when we do the subdivision, it will end up with the sheds alone on lot 2. which is a little bit of an issue in the code. You can't put a shed, you can't have a shed on a parcel by itself. It can't be a principal structure. I have talked to the zoning administrator about this. You don't really want to make you have to knock them down, just because that's what the code says, but I do have to confirm with him exactly what we want to do about this. I think we may be able to just put some language in an approval resolution stating that the lots are intended for residential development, and that's why those are there. They can't be utilized for something else. They can't turn into a house or something like that. But there will be an issue if you put a house on there with those sheds, because they are in front of the principal, they would be in front of the principal structure, which means they need to get a variance to keep those when the house gets built. So I want to make you aware of that.
Right, you're talking about both of that on lot 2.
Right, on lot 2, because they're in front of the principal structure, they require variances to stay when you come in to build the house. So it may be something you want to consider, just in terms of what we want to do moving forward. It's a quirk in the code, but it has some impact sometimes.
Sure.
So I think we're okay there, and the only other thing is that there'll be a park and rec fee for the 2 new lots that are created. That's per town code. But otherwise, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, I'd open it up to planning board members for questions.
I have a question for Jim. Is there another section of the zoning law that states that in the RC5 district, any parcel that's subdivided needs to have 5 acres clear of any wetlands or wetland buffers or slopes over, I think it's 25%?
Well, that's where the 3.75 comes in. You know, we talked about this, I think you were involved in this years ago, when Michael was here, I think it's acting ZA. We came up with kind of a formula as to what the code says and how. So we need to make sure that a lot has at least 3.75, has at least 75% of the minimum lot size required. So in the RC5, the 5-lot minimum will be 3.75 acres. And they do show the wetland on here, and that's accounted for, and that's definitely not 1.2 acres, 2.5 acres of land. So they're well within the 3.75.
It's interesting that it's Rockledge, I think, was using the old one, right?
I have to go back and look.
I'm pretty sure.
No, I think
Well,
we're
that
doing net.
Ages ago.
Yeah.
Right, what we're doing, yeah, I mean, one is net buildable, and this one is net land area. There's, I think they're using essentially the same thing, but the discussion we had about this for subdivisions came about, I think, like 2-3 years ago. So we had some, but they're all looking at that buildable area.
Questions from other planning board members? All right, Jim, I think you have a draft procedural resolution.
So for the board's consideration tonight, draft procedural resolution for minor subdivision for Gretchen Bonner, Ethan George at Hall, under Town Code Chapter 101, to subdivide existing lot into 3 lots at 563 Primrose Hill Road, accepting applications, supporting documents as adequate for further review by the planning board, classifying the actions unlisted under seeker for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required, scheduling the public hearing for
June 17th.
June 17th, thank you. And we need 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
Who would like to go? I'll go. Sharon? Who would like to go with Sharon?
I can go. Okay. It's either one.
Pardon?
I'll go.
Okay. Did you?
And I'll tag along with the 2 of them.
Yeah.
I think, sure, that would be lovely. And so what will happen, Patrick, is that one of these 3 will be in touch with you and organize a mutually agreeable time to come out to the site.
Great, just kind of go over.
Yeah, they kind of come to the site, look at it, walk what's walkable. You explain it to them in the field, and then they'll come back at the June 17th meeting and make a report from their site visit. So, and the family's welcome to be there as well. But I assume you want it scheduled through you.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Is that okay? All right.
I can coordinate that.
Okay. All right. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be able to see you.
You too. The second new application this evening is Brian Normoyle, 90 Old Post Road, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Site plan and special use permit.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Brian Normoyle. I am, well, actually, I'm not the founder. I'm the helper with the Institute for Animal Happiness. that stood for animal happiness, acquired the old Delvin property on 90 Old Post Road. And my background is in publishing, also a little bit of construction and renovation. And then the nonprofit that we have, I'm going to let Rebecca talk about.
You might mostly know our work as a farmed avian rescue. So we pick up discarded and neglected and dumped chickens around the area and rehabilitate them. We have a specialty with disabled birds. So we actually pioneered the first little zip line for disabled chickens so that they can still walk and forage and get exercise. We have 2 disabled ducks. We're very small. We're called a micro sanctuary, so we're actually only 18 birds at this time. And we teach a lot of education about bird care, proper housing, feeding, and we do education regarding plant-based diets. So we run a free food program out of Kingston, New York, where we were previously on the other side of the river, serving free food every Wednesday at People's Place, trying to teach people about healthy plant-based options. And we've done in just summer seasons with a little rehabilitated hot dog cart out behind People's Place. We serve 3,000 free meals, and we run an all plant-based free vegan Thanksgiving every year at People's Place in their cafe, and we feed 150 plus people. So we're an odd, sort of new kind of organization that brings together human aid and non-human aid, and about sort of the healing aspects of you know, animal care and human care. So we teach a lot about the intersections of caregiving as human caregivers for animals. So we're kind of new kind of organization, but the heart and soul of what we do is sort of becoming experts in disabled bird care. So it's very special.
So why don't you tell us what you want to do here?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll let Brian.
So Mr. Tam has been very helpful. Mr. Levy has been helpful. Gretchen has been helpful too. So basically we are asking for a variance or special permit for 3 additional coops or sheds.
Do you want to walk us through it a little bit under detail?
Sure. So these 2 are existing. Okay, these are the 2 new ones. Previously on the property, obviously the house existed, the barn existed. This is actually, the survey has been updated, so this is not existing. And these 2 up here are lean-tos. So those aren't, you know,
They're not full buildings.
yeah, not full buildings, and animals won't be, it will give them shelter if we ever end up using them. And then we transported off of Ohio Mountain Road 3 small coops that I had built. Got those down the mountain and then brought them over here. And there was some back and forth in terms of our zoning, in terms of ag res and what we could do and what we couldn't do. And then after talking with Brian Tam, he did his determination letter, and we decided to not do anything until we talked to you folks and then forward. So those 2 structures, thank you. So the coops that are going to be moving are here and here, and then there's a small, oh, thank you so much.
The second one.
Center bed. Center bed. The center bed? The middle one is the one that practically nobody's counting because it's so small. It's 4 by 4 in print, and the other ones are just a little bit bigger. But I think the square footage for all of our buildings combined was approximately 2,100 for those buildings. Electric will be run to all 4 of them. That permit has been pulled, and partial work is done. But once again, when we determined that we needed to get a special use permit. We thought it would be in that form to continue, and we stopped, and then we're here.
Jim?
So I took a look at this, and I have talked to Brian. Brian, I've been working with you for a little bit on this one. So a couple of things I just wanted to run through. Let's go back to the site plan. The site plan was done by Decker. We need him to stamp and sign it. We can't accept the plans if they're not stamped and signed, so if that can be done before the public hearing in 30 days, that would be good.
I promise we'll be.
So we need to get that done, and I'm sure he'll take care of that.
My apologies.
You just discussed, and one of the things I raised, we raised at the pre-conference meeting was that you're going to have electricity running out to these, and I didn't see anything on the site plan or on the sketch that you had submitted that showed where that electrical is going to run. I know you talked about pulling permits, but typically the building department is going to want to see, and the planning board likes to see as well, where that electric's going to go. So I don't know if it's buried or if you're running it overhead.
It's buried, and I can add that.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that needs to be added to the plans.
Okay.
Or with the signature. I'm not sure. That'd be a good question. I also had a question up again on the site plan. This line here, it's saying this is the edge of the woods. I'm pretty sure that's not right. This is typically showing like a swale or something like that, which I would guess it is coming out here into the creek. This would, to me, would be the edge of the woods here. Do you know what this line is representing? This is your well? That's the barn?
Well, I can tell you that somewhere around here is a swell that was existing before. And to be honest with you, I don't know what that other line is.
Okay, if you go back to Decker, it might be good just to ask him if he can check that. And you'll get a copy of my notes. Just check that label.
Okay, thank you.
It looks to me like this is probably a runner for the, the roof water maybe coming off here and then going into that swale, which would then go out, off-site. Just want to make sure that's labeled properly, because this is definitely the edge of woods here. So just make sure that that label is fixed.
Thank you very much.
The last two things I had is that in talking with Brian, it was my understanding that I think you were proposing to remove 2 sheds on the property. Maybe these 2 or these 2, I'm not sure which.
So the one that is,
He mentioned it would be the 2 in green here, I think.
yeah, so the one that I did supply the updated plan by Decker, but I know it's in the file, but, and we will show that for the planning board in the future. It's, I think the updated one is in the packet too. But to answer your question, yeah, this one no longer, it hasn't existed. We took it down last April. And then these 2 lean-tos, when I was talking to Mr. Tam, it was a question about the roof. If they're a roof, then they count. And so I took off the roof on one of them.
Can I say something?
And then we were going to talk to the planning board and find out what you wanted or what you didn't want.
Look, the only reason I raise it is that where they're located is in front of the principal structure, and I'm sure you talked to Brian about this, which means you require variance for that, which I didn't see in the application. So I just wanted to kind of figure out where you're headed with
If I may
these.
say, those were there before we got here, and in farm parlance, they're called loaf sheds. They're basically the equivalent of they're not even a building, they're not even a shed with sides. They're what's called, well, basically they're shade structures so the animals' hay won't, whoever was there before us had sheep, and you put the hay in this area so that it doesn't get wet, and the animals, if it was a rainy day and they're out grazing, but they can go under and eat their hay without it getting wet. So they're not even buildings, they're like 4 posts, but he did take the roof off.
Right, and I understand where you're coming from, but the way the code is written, a roof structure is a roof structure.
A roof
It doesn't
structure,
really matter the
yeah.
intent or what it's used for. So if there is a roof structure in front of the building, which here is 118 feet under, kind of on the bend of the road, but if it's in front of the principal structure, as you draw a line kind of parallel to the road itself, then it's considered to be something that we need a variance from the ZBA.
Yeah,
So-
Wouldn't the previous owners have had to get?
So-
No, and when you come in, if something like this comes up,
Starts over.
you have to, well, this is start over, but you have to make sure it's legal.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to defer, I'd like some guidance from the planning board. I mean, it's a solid structure, and I think at some point, if we bring in other animals, we would use them, we would use that. We're not going to have a lot, we're going to stay very small. So if everybody's okay with having that variance, we are. If I need to take it down,
Well, you
So
have to.
it doesn't, I'm sorry,
oh, okay.
it doesn't come from this board, it would come from the zoning board of appeals, so it's a different board, you go before, you know, it's an
It certainly would be useful to our rescue at some point down the line, so it's a shame to take down a good building, I mean, a good structure for shade, because especially with climate change, it's only going to get
You don't need
hotter.
to get the application into the zoning. You can continue to appear before us while you're waiting to appear before the zoning board of appeals, but we can't make a final determination
Okay.
until you have that variance. So the sooner you get it in, because they only meet once a month, and they have
Before we take it down.
they have a longer lead time. So the sooner you get it in, the sooner you get on their agenda. Gretchen, I don't know where they are with
Brian, sadly, if it's going to help us move forward, to not have to, maybe we just take it down.
Well,
It's a shame, but
I think we should have a discussion on that, and
Well, we're going to do what we did earlier tonight. We're going to schedule a site visit. We'll be coming back next month anyway. That gives you time to discuss this privately and make your determination. If you decide you do want to keep them, I'm just encouraging you to go at the earliest moment and get on the agenda for the zoning board of appeals.
So it comes down to two things. It's either, when you go back to ask Decker to do a couple changes to the plans, you know, if you decide to take it off and show it to be removed, label it as to be removed, if they're gonna come out. The one that you show as existing, if that's been removed, either you can take it off or labeled that way. Or if you're gonna go before the ZBA, you can leave it on there. I'm wondering if anyone has other opinion happen. And then the last item that I have is that I do believe you may need to get a floodplain permit from Brian, and I have talked about that with him. It is a process that we are currently working on here in the town, and we'll have to talk about that as a separate issue with him. That's something that would be done by him directly, not by the planning board.
planning board.
Yeah, the zoning administrator is responsible for administering the floodplain regulations.
And would can that flow with the timeline, or
I
you
would-
really should?
It doesn't go before either of the boards. It's a determination by the zoning administrator.
Okay. Any other questions?
So that's
Well, I'm
it.
going to ask my colleagues, does anyone on the planning board have questions of this application?
Cannot the lean-tos be moved?
No, they're
dug deep. It's very well installed, whoever did them did a good job. Yeah, they have a big posts and they are down.
It's too bad for that one because it needs to be about 15 feet back, and then we can just behind it, but on the house. But it's not. In my crew drawing, the world was a little flat, so it doesn't.
Are you making any changes to the house?
No, I mean, there was, other than cleaning it up and cosmetic renovations, we did get a new HVAC system, and we also got a generator. Both permits were pulled. We contracted with local folks. So we're trying to keep that within this area. And then the electrical permit was from Badger Electrical.
You said they started work? Or-
We started, but then we stopped.
Well, we'll want to see where the trenching is going to be for your buried electric.
Yeah,
What's the date of your house?
in 1995,
The house.
the house,
Okay.
and also the barn too. And so they trenched, they ran the lines, but then when we started talking to Brian Tam and Keel and what have you, then we just stopped. So that's why we didn't move the coops, and that's why we didn't install the electric, obviously. And I apologize for this about
Any other planning board members? Okay, Jim, we have a draft procedural resolution.
The draft procedural resolution for the board's consideration for site plan and special use permit for Brian Norwell for installation of accessory structures at 90 Old Post Road within the R10 zoning district, accepting the application and supporting documents as adequate for initiating review by the planning board, classifying the action as type 2 under seeker, scheduling the public hearing for, I should remember, it's June 17th. And we are going to send this off to the CAB for review, Dutchess County, and we need 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
Who'd like to go? Craig?
I'll go.
Sharon? Okay.
Sorry, who's going please?
Craig and Sharon?
And Sharon.
Okay, great, thank you.
So one of us will reach out.
All right. May I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution?
So moved.
Motion by Edna, second
Second.
by Craig. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the motion carries.
Thank you so
Craig
much.
will be in touch with you to schedule. The next new application this evening is Lawrence Laybourne, 71 Orchard Drive, site plan, special use permit, and demo permit. The demolition of an existing single-family dwelling and the construction of a new single-family.
This is my board.
Yes.
Hi, I'm obviously not Lawrence Laybourne. My husband had surgery on Friday and he just returned from the hospital, so he's not with us. But fortunately, the surgery was successful.
Wonderful.
And I just wanted to give a little background on what we're hoping to do in Rhinebeck. I came to the Hudson Valley as a student in the 60s, and like all of you, I know. And many of our friends lived up here, so we spent many, many weekends in Rhinebeck, and we always drove through Rhinecliff, and I thought someday we'll get to be here. So when my husband and I retired, which is laughable because he's taught in the Bard prison program, I'm running a project in Dutchess County to train women to be early childhood teachers and making great progress. But we came to Rhinebeck because we loved it, because we loved the community, because we loved the size of the community, we loved the tenor of the community, we loved the game. We loved the way it looked, we loved the way it felt. And we wanted, our kids were just starting to have kids. And we wanted those kids to have a chance to be in a community where they could be more free than in the cities that they lived in. And since we've been in Rhinebeck since 2007, my grandkids have each lived in 5 or 6 different homes. So they consider Rhinebeck their house. In fact, my oldest granddaughter, I know you probably don't like jokes, but my oldest granddaughter was 5 when we finished the house, renovating the house. And she came in and she said, "Baba, when you die, can I have this house?" And I said, "Of course." And that's the way they feel about it. So our goal as grandparents is to age in place. And we have many nieces and nephews who are frequently with us. We are children lovers, that's who we are, that's what we do. And so we need space, especially for my husband with limited mobility, to live in an aging in place house. When we first came to the community, I was horrified that the children's library was a dumping ground for television sets and videotapes. And so we talked to the community and asked if people would contribute their skills. I just tell you this to tell you how we are part of this community. We had carpenters, electricians, and master painter Joseph Moresco. They contributed their skills. We paid for all the out-of-pocket costs. We organized. Now there is a beautiful children's library with a history of Rhinebeck on the sea. When we thought about this property, our neighbor next to us could no longer maintain 71 Orchard, and he asked if we were interested in buying it. And we said yes, because that would fulfill our ability to age in place. A long-time family friend, Maya Lynn, asked if she could design a house for us. Maya's been to our house many, many times over 20 years. She loves Rhinecliff. She's been there and seeing what it is and why it's such a great place. And I feel like what we're presenting to you is so thoughtful and so considerate of how do we create a house that, you know, replaces something that was not true to the history of Rhinecliff. It's a long, one-story house. The character of Rhinecliff, there are almost no one-story houses. I can't think of any other such. They're all two-story houses. So we're looking at this long, one-story house took up the entire view of the Hudson River. So, you know, what do we want to do? We want to open up the views. We want to change the orientation so it matches what's here in Rhinecliff, so it fits in.
Why don't we look at it?
That's fine, but I'm setting the stage.
Okay.
I know your time is precious.
Thank you.
I just want you to know that everything that we're worried about, whether it's runoff in Rhinecliff, how do you get more permeable surfaces? How do we have materiality that looks like the rest of Rhinecliff? We have taken all of this into consideration, and I am extremely proud of what we're going to present to you. On the team today, we have John Powell, who's an architect in his own right, and he will present the drawings. Heather Whitefield is from Organic Matters. She is a gardener and landscaper who's worked with us since 2007, and this is my team.
Is it possible to control the slides, or do I?
If you give me that, I might be able to get to work in the wall. Let's see. The arrows on that white. No. Yeah, that's not gonna work. I can just do it for you. Okay.
Great.
Just on the slide. Let's go from there.
So, Jerry just walked through 4 sections of the presentation. The first, you can go to the next slide. The first is, oh, now it works.
There you go. Just took a second.
So this is 67 Orchard, and this is 71 Orchard. And so, you know, this is where Jerry and Kit live now, and this is the site where the new house would be. And the ranch house is currently right here. So this is sort of just an orientation study to show you that right now, you know, most of the buildings in Rhinecliff have the short facade facing the street and the depth of the building extending into the lot. The current house does the opposite. It's a long 1950s ranch house, it's about 90 feet long, with no breaks. And it currently, you know, blocks the view of the river and is, you know, doing the opposite of what all the other buildings in the hamlet do, especially along this road. And then the new house corrects that by creating a space between the garage and the main house, which is currently blocked off. This is a house that has a garage and a principal structure, but there's a structure connecting them, so you can actually see between them. And the new in the new design, you would actually have a space in between the two structures, which would allow the land, which would allow the buildings to feel less dense and the landscape to start to bleed through the building. These are cross sections through Orchard Drive. So this is the existing, where you have the red house, and this is 67, this is 71, and then in the proposed design, you have a two-story structure that is about 26 feet tall, which is similar in height to most of the buildings along the street that we've looked at. The buildings in Rhinecliff generally range between like 26 and 35 feet tall. And this will be 26, and then there's a garage to the side of it with an open space in between. And this kind of gives you an overall view of how we're breaking it up. So the current structure is about 90 feet long, and the new structure is 24 foot of house, 20 feet of breezeway between the garage and the principal house, and then 28 feet of garage. So it's about 18 feet less, 18 feet less of building facing Orchard Drive. And this is the view from cutting through Rhinecliff Road. So, basically, it's up there in the woods like its predecessor, but there's actually going to be more woods. And this is the same, just from the opposite direction. So you can see here, like this building is roughly 35 feet tall. 67 Orchard is 25 feet tall, and we're at the same height. This is just something interesting about this site in general. In our observation of the site and how to address the architecture on the site, this is where sort of the town starts to break up a little bit and become forest and farmland again. So this is the last house. 67 Orchard is sort of the last house on the grid, where you have houses that are close to each other, and then it starts to break up. So this is a cross-section going through Orchard Drive, but facing the farmland. So you can see, so 71 Orchard is right here. And then these are just some rendered elevations of the building and with the landscaping. These are our calculations for the footprint of the site and the amount of permeable surfaces that we're doing. So the new house and the old house have a very similar site footprint, and we're increasing the permeability of the site, as Jerry mentioned, by using permeable surfaces for our driveways and walkways and terraces. Currently, they're all concrete and asphalt. So we did we studied all the buildings in the town, and we were thinking about what color the building should be, and so we're matching some of the gray tones that we've seen throughout the hamlet. We were also studying the form of the buildings, and a lot of the buildings in the hamlet have these breezeways in between the principal structure and an accessory building, or porches that have kind of double height going down the hill. Forms that get articulated with a one-story volume off the side or the front of the building and the front porch. So we've incorporated all these ideas into the building, and then the gabled roof, of course. The current building is just a flat roof all the way across, like a gabled roof where you see the side of it. So now we're going back to the, something that's more in keeping with the other buildings in the hamlet, where you have a gabled roof facing the street. And these are just some more context photographs to show how our landscape design and our planning of the house kind of incorporates other elements from the hamlet. This is more about the colors. So, the grays that we've chosen, kind of like the grays blues that we've chosen are in keeping with the other buildings. So this is just a diagram to show you like the materials of the building. All the materials we've pulled from, you know, kind of natural materials like glass and stucco and wood, and the roof is metal, and then the siding is clapboard, which is made out of zinc. So these are the side views. And then we have a model in the back if you wanted to actually look, see, put your eye into the building. And then Heather. Talk about landscape.
The landscape and the lighting, we are looking to be dark sky compliant, and there's very minimal lighting and no uplighting whatsoever. There's some removals, largely trees that are either dying or are really compromised in some way, have some rot issues, and replacing them in 2 cases with native trees, a red oak and a red maple. Otherwise, there's a magnificent red bud in the center of the front yard. That's going to be protected, and that'll definitely stay. That's just absolutely gorgeous. And the woodland will be embellished with more understory trees, more dogwoods, more red buds, and a little bit of screening using indigenous plant materials, shrubs that are going to be in that sort of 8 to 10 foot range. That's all documented in the next couple of slides. The lawn will be really minimal, and there's no need for a big lawn, but the open space will be sort of an herbaceous garden, meaning perennials, grasses, ferns, just sort of a nice mix. And the way to make that look not too wild in a way, like kind of like apropos for in town is to give it a frame or a border. So it's going to have a nice stone wall around it, which is kind of a continuation of the one that's already at 67. So it'll just kind of be a continuation and link the 2 properties. And that, again, sort of lends itself to sort of a harmonious kind of concept. But this is a wonderful sort of ecological approach to caring for the garden and increasing habitat, biodiversity, and when you age in place, you don't want to have like, big bills from the landscaper. So everything's meant to just be, I guess, just a little easier. So just as an example, there's a really nice stand of ostrich fern, and we're looking to kind of harvest them when construction happens. We've already done a little bit of it just to see if it was viable, and we started last fall and did a little test patch, and it worked great. So we intend to keep them and then repopulate the area with there's thousands of ostrich fern. So yeah, that's kind of it. It's there's some really beautiful renderings of what. There's some new proposed trees. Here's what the lighting looks like.
The lighting, we designed all the lighting to be down lighting, so there's nothing being uplit, and they're all dark sky lights that are going to be at 2,700 kelvins. And this is just really to light paths and entrances. Nothing, like there's no dramatic tree lighting or anything like that. And it's so dark you can barely see it. And
here's an example of the red oak and the red maple. And here's some of the shrubs that we anticipate using, and the understory trees on the bottom, flowering dogwoods, red buds, and the pagoda dogwood, which is, and then here's an example of the herbaceous layer. What else we got? This just shows how the house just kind of melts into the landscape using the landscape around it, and shows just kind of the porches and how it would sort of engage with the street.
yeah, and you'd asked us to send you pictures, like before and after pictures of the street view. And this one actually really does help exemplify how the house brings out the layers of the site. like right now, you don't really see what's going on behind the house, which is this hill with trees on it, going down to the river, and now you'll be able to see, you'll be able to experience this as a layered site. And here it is, the leaves turned off. This is on Orchard Drive, looking back at the house. And then Rhinecliff Road view, looking up the hill. And that's the end of the presentation.
I have one question, just kind of a clarification question. The renderings you did, which are phenomenal, the nice renderings, when they show the landscaping of the trees, particularly with the zoom in on the house, looking at it from the street, is it representing what would be there, or is this kind of like a general representation? Like those trees, if I look, didn't seem to necessarily be exactly what was on plan, unless I just am looking at it right, in terms of like what's shown there. Just in terms of the walk itself, I mean, are those representative of exactly what you plan on site when it's built out?
So the tree that's in flower is there.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
But
And then,
when you come to see the site, it's not in flower anymore.
So some of the other ones, like when we're looking up the road, I assume that's just kind of an all rendering, not that one, but I guess the last slide.
Sorry, this one here.
so the tree way on the left is there now. It's a Norway maple, and it's really dying back, and that'll be replaced with a red oak or a white oak. And then the little one right in the center, right, this one, that will be, that's not there now, and that will be red maple.
Okay, so those are representative of what would be.
Exactly.
Yeah, and those are also identified on the site plan, like the tree species.
So I guess we go to the last slide, so that was just one qualifying question.
Sure.
So that one, I mean, you guys didn't render every tree, right? That's just a general representation of what you'd see if you're driving down the road.
All these trees are here now.
Exactly as they're shown there?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so you did have a survey with tree locations on it, so the trees that are in the model do align.
You did do a survey?
Yeah, there's a survey.
I must have seen that. All right. So beyond that, I only have two real comments. Well, actually, that was the first one. The second one is just that, we are in Rhinecliff, so there is flexibility, and you guys have all heard this from me before, there is flexibility in zoning and development, but there are also historic and visual considerations. I believe as the planning consultant, most of the issues related to this project are principally aesthetic, related to historic preservation, consistency with the neighborhood, and location in the hamlet. As the footprint of the proposed house is only about 130 feet larger than what exists today, though the layout is obviously changing. The only other comment I'd have is that, with the new walkways and things, the discussion, again, maybe I just saw it, I don't remember, the phase A, 1A and 1B, archaeology report.
Yeah, we were exempt from that.
Was that?
We were exempt from that.
You're exempt from that? Okay.
Yeah, no, we were told we didn't have to do the phase A and 1B because there's no historic building on the site and it's a slope.
Yep.
And that there was no evidence, that there was no evidence of people dwelling on slopes. In this
That came from Dr. Wentworth.
Yeah, it came, well, it was emailed to me.
I'm asking who generated that.
I can look it up.
Okay, I'm assuming it was through HACAP. That was written by,
Yeah, because I think that came out of our pre-con discussion where we said if we're not essentially moving beyond the footprint of anything that's been disturbed, then we're fine. We do understand, obviously, it's not a historic house that we're talking about taking down. But if we went outside of the footprint, then that might change. But if you have an email from Ann saying otherwise, then that's fine. But
I think she said that anything that might have been important on the site was already destroyed by the original construction of the current house.
Okay, well, yeah, so we'll take a look at that. Just confirm it. Just don't remember. That's it.
and open up your planning board members.
When I look at this, let me just get this straight. You currently live in the house up the street, not in
Right
this
next door.
ranch house.
No.
So you purchased the ranch house, and your intention is to tear that down and build this?
Yes. The ranch house was not in good shape, and in fact, it was in bad shape. And there was a tremendous amount of garbage on the property, which we
Okay. And when I look at the renderings, in comparison to the picture of the house that's there, and I've driven by there a couple of times, the house that exists, even though it's a 1950s era ranch house, there's a lot about it that is familiar to previous eras. There's brickwork, there are framed window openings. It's part of a continuum of development, and that's part of what Rhinecliff is. It's not, it's not like we have this rarefied moment in time where everything looks exactly the same. It's not that kind of a historic resource. There is a lot of variety, and I think what's being proposed is really dissonant with that. And I couldn't really read what materials go where. You had said something about zinc metal siding. So
We have it back here.
how does that differ from aluminum siding from?
So it's a clapboard siding. So it's just a horizontal siding with a space in between. And we're choosing zinc as a material because it lasts forever.
So it's sheet metal that's made to look like wood.
Precisely.
In other words.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know that that's one of the things that's discouraged in development in the historic district is imitation materials that, like vinyl siding, that are, pretending to be something that they're not.
I think I'm sorry.
The reason we've chosen that material is because it lasts forever. And so it doesn't have to be replaced or repainted every 20 years.
Similar things were said about asbestos siding, and that actually is a very durable material.
I
And,
should, but I sadly, I grew up in John's Manor.
right. And the plan going forward is for you to age in place in this new house?
Yes.
Okay. But that house is on 2 levels. Is there some sort of a conveyance that's
There's a,
going to be an
there's a,
elevator?
there's a lift, an elevator.
Also, the ground floor is designed to be used as there's a room on the ground floor that has a full ADA compliant bathroom. So the house can be used as a 1-story residence. It has all of the living spaces are on the lower level. And then there's an ADA bathroom and a room that can be converted into a bedroom.
So to me, this is 2024, and we have a chance to bring a gorgeous design to Rhinecliff, which our neighbors like. So, I'm not sure, we haven't done everything, but many of our neighbors.
I have a question.
Yes.
There was, I'm not sure what part of this is showing in. It shows topography, and then it shows, I think, one of the balconies suspended kind of in air over a slope. On the model. I just wanted to look at that. I didn't understand the.
Here we go. It actually has a wall built below it, like right there. So the house extends a little bit over the slope, and there's a masonry wall below it.
Oh, I see.
So it's not up, it's not floating.
Right, right.
And that's another, it's grounded and sitting on like a stone foundation.
I think it's a beautiful design. And you've gone through a lot of steps to make it work.
You sure can.
Is this within the overlay, the historic overlay? So I didn't hear you mention anything about the historic district itself, or what character prevails in that, and how much was the nature of that district taken into consideration for the design?
So, quite a lot. So pretty much everything is drawn. All our choices were drawn, not just from architectural trends that we found in the district. So if you think about the house, it's not the year it was built, what the form is. That, you know, in the hamlet, the majority of the buildings are gabled roof houses with a short side facing the street.
Okay.
So that's why
I did hear you say that, yes.
And then the roofs there are metal roofs on many buildings in the hamlet, like metal roofs. So we're doing a standing seam metal roof, which is very, you know, prevalent in the hamlet. The materials of the house, the clapboard arrangement of the siding is something that you see in the hamlet frequently. There are, you know, as you said, punch windows. The house has lots of punch windows. We have porches on the front and the back of the house, which is, and then another thing that you see a lot in the hamlet is the two building orientation where you have a space in between. So that's sort of like an urban density thing, but it's very the idea of doing that came from the hamlet. So it's basically break the buildings apart and create something that feels less dense than the current house. Yeah.
Well, and just in case you haven't surmised by now, I'm very much an advocate of preservation, and I really feel like demolition is not a good functional tool for preservation. It's really quite the opposite. It's also not a sustainable approach to building, and you can build the greenest building, use the greenest methods, LEED certified and all that you want, but really the greenest building that exists is one that's already built. So tearing something down and sending things off to the landfill and building something new with all of the energy that goes into it is really, I think, a waste. There's also sort of an intangible aspect to the embodied energy of a building. There's all of that effort that was put in, by the craftsmen who made it happen. And I feel it's somewhat unfortunate to see that go to waste.
I invite you to come and see the house.
I'm going to ask if there's other planning board members who would like to comment at this time.
Is the brick house unlivable?
The brick house is completely unlivable, and it wasn't a crafted house. I can't say that there's one piece of it that wants to be preserved. I grew up in a mid-century house. They built the same time, and so I'm not against one-story houses. But it's not, if I couldn't live in it, it's got too much mold, and there's nothing to save. I'm sorry.
Anyone else?
Are there any plans or anything regarding solar, or like what's the heating methods? Like how eco-friendly has the construction been considered?
So we're going to be building the house basically to passive house standards.
Okay.
And the site is not conducive to solar, but we are also it's going all electric. It's going to be an all electric building.
This will be looked at very carefully, I'm sure, by the Conservation Advisory Board and NAPAC. I think as Jim points out, the biggest issue here is the compatibility, if you will, with Rhinecliff itself as a hamlet, and whether or not
Across the street.
across the street.
Probably across the street.
I'm sorry. I think that's what is going to be heavily scrutinized as to the compatibility with the overall characteristics of properties that make Rhinecliff. So I think we've talked about that before, and the CAB will look carefully at that in terms of the waterfront district and the overlay district, and we'll just take it from there. Jim, anything else?
Yeah, just one other thing. I noticed the wall on there. If you could just confirm with Town Highway Department that it's okay, separation distance from the street, I think it is. Just get in writing from them that they're okay with it. If any issues with plowing, snow, that kind of thing, that would be good. But I think you're probably all right given this.
So we have a draft procedural resolution unless there's anything else that needs to be brought up at this time. Okay.
So the draft procedure resolution for the board's consideration for Lawrence Laybourne site plan special use permit for demolition of a single-family dwelling, replacement of a new dwelling at 71 Orchard Drive, accepting the application, supporting documents is adequate for further review, classifying the action as type 2 under seeker, scheduling a public hearing on the application for June 17th. We will be sending this to the CAB for review, the WAC, which is the Waterfront Advisory Committee. We will send this to HAPAC for review. It will also go to county planning since it is site plan. And we need 2 planning board members, at least to go into a site visit.
Okay.
Craig and Edmund.
Give me some wheels.
Anybody else want to go?
Let
Tom will
us know when
join
you
you,
go.
so if you'll let
Okay,
Tom.
that would be terrific. Thanks, Tom.
Can you sell tickets?
Well, that comes in
Tom
phase
is the
2.
referee. Moderator.
I think it would be very beneficial for this site visit to make sure that the Waterfront Advisory Committee, the CAB, and HAPAC are all present at the same time. It makes the process a little more efficient, and it gets all the right parties on the site at the same time. So I'll trust you to coordinate that.
I will.
Okay. All right, may I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
second. Louise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The final new application to be presented this evening is Wildflower School, 7085 and 709 Route 9 for site plan and special use. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi. My name is Anushe. Here with my son Paul, support and note taker. So we moved here about a year and a half ago. We had 2 small kids. Paul grew up here, so we came back to be with his mother. And we had a really tough time finding childcare for our kids. At that time they were 1 and 3, and all we could find was a 3-hour program, and we both have full-time jobs, so it was really difficult. And I've been in schools teaching and working with teachers for the past 15 years, so I saw an opportunity, and I've been looking for a property to start a school for more than a year, I think. We had offers on 3 different places, in Claremont, and in Hudson, and in Redwood Village, and we found this one, and it's a perfect place. It's just not ready for children to be there yet. So the plan is so on the property, there's a big U-shaped driveway, and at the back of the driveway, there's a small building. And that building has 2 main rooms on the bottom floor, and then an office space on the 2nd floor. So the plan is to increase the footprint of the building slightly to add 2 more bathrooms to comply with daycare standards for children. You have to have a toilet for every 15 kids. One will be ADA accessible, and the other one will be for toddlers. The site plan also show that we have to install a new septic system. When we had our soil testing, we met with the Board of Health, and there will be a septic system installed here. So this is the Red Hook side, and this is the Rhinebeck side, and the septic system's there, but it's also going to kind of go into the Red Hook side of this property. They've also asked that the septic system be combined, so there's also this right here. It's a 2-family home, but I don't know what Rhinebeck thinks it is, because it used to be in Red Hook, and it was a 2-family in Red Hook, and then it got moved to Rhinebeck, and that's a question I have for you all. So this is right now the current septic for this building is here, but they've advised us to abandon it and connect both buildings to one giant septic in the back. And then they'll drill a well here, and the reserve field will be back here. And there will be 2 fenced-in playgrounds, one here and one on the Red Hook side. Other big site improvements, we have to replace the roof. And I think those are the major side improvements. Okay. Sorry? Oh, and we have to pave the driveway. DOT asked us to make the driveway one-way entrance, so they'll come in this way, and one-way exit, they'll come out this way.
Okay, sorry, just looking through my notes. So if the board took a look at the notes that I sent out, I think for this one, I ended up having 4 pages of notes. And the reason for that is that the applicant's engineer had sent out very specific questions asking me to very specifically respond to those very specific questions. And that was essentially every single requirement of the site plan application. I didn't respond to every single site plan request if it was just we submitted this, but I did respond in my memo to every question that said we want, and essentially we wanted an answer to that question. I don't know if you want me to go through all 3 pages of them. I can hit the highlights, and then you'll get a copy of it so you can see kind of what we did. I don't know if you want to take the time tonight to go through it. There are some issues that I think will need to be addressed by the engineer. But it did take me some time because we were very specifically asked, and so I very specifically went through line by line their questions in their submittal letter. Let me,
As I recall, this is right on the Rhinebeck Red Hook line, okay. And has Red Hook been noticed?
it wouldn't be until after tonight.
After tonight, it won't. Okay, sorry.
Okay. That's going to be one of the comments. So just kind of going through all this, we did a pre-conference meeting back in March. That was fine. Getting into the items themselves, you have started your coordination with DOT, and you started coordination with Dutchess County Department of Health for the water and septic. The planning board typically does not, I think pretty much always does not do an approval until we have approval from Dutchess County Health. So that would be an outside agency review. The DOT review, depending on what they ask for, I think you've addressed, so most of their comments, there's still a couple, I think, in the application I saw that you're going to have to look into, but I think they were on the plans themselves. You just need to get a clean letter from DOT stating that they're okay.
Yeah, that was included in the application.
There was a letter stating what they wanted to see, and I think is on the plans, but we don't have a clean letter from DOT stating that what's on here is accepted by them. So we'll need that to some degree to be able to move forward. There's a question about escrow agreements. I don't typically get into fees and escrow agreements. They're subject to change by the town board, but that's all taken care of by Gretchen, so I will leave that to town staff. There's a question about water and runoff. I do recommend, because we are looking at paving the entire area that's shown there in dark gray, where it was not paved before, that maybe we send this off to CPL for a quick review to make sure they don't have any issues with runoff. DOT will certainly be looking at it to see if they have any issues with runoff toward the road, look at slopes and things like that. But it may be worth sending to CPL for that. On the EAF form, there were 2 lines that I think just needed to be checked, minor things. There is a federal wetland on the property, just need to check that box. And again, I think stormwater should be checked by CPL. I don't believe there's any additional further information required for seeker, as long as you just update the form with those 2 boxes. I don't see, unless the planning board disagrees, that there's a need for fiscal impact analysis on this. Culture resource assessment, that would be something that might come from HAPAC. I would defer to them and any planning board members if you had a thought on that. Don't think we need a traffic impact study. Well, this is a more intense use than I think what was probably previously there. Given the size of it, I don't think anything is needed in that regard. You could ask CPL just to confirm that. Again, if NISID had any issues, they would certainly ask. That's another secret comment, we've covered that. We did talk in the pre-con about, and you just brought this up, the town of Red Hook. So this property was apparently located in the town of Red Hook in the past, and at some point in the past it jumped into the town of Rhinebeck. We don't really know how. There's almost no files on this in town hall here, so we had asked if you could try and get your hands on the files from Red Hook so that the building department and the planning board could take a look at them. I didn't see them in the packet. I think you had said that you're still trying to get those.
No, I've been and we've asked, they don't have anything.
They don't have anything at all? Okay. That's going to make this more interesting for the downstairs, but building department will have to figure it
So
out.
the
All
issue
right.
is that it's 2-family home, and is that the issue, that it's not?
Well, there are numbers, there's no history on it at all. You know, in terms of building department permits, what's been pulled, what isn't pulled, what's there. So I'm gonna have to talk with Ryan and just see zoning administrator and the building department to see what, if anything, they need for this, as it relates to them and anyone else. So we will look into that, but I appreciate you trying to get the files from Red Hook. You mentioned that there's a fence in Red Hook. You're going to have to go to Red Hook to get that fence permit. Since it's entirely in the town of Red Hook, I don't know if the planning board needs to really worry about it. It is on the line, so they should refer it back to us for a referral, but I don't think we have to worry about it since it's not in Rhinebeck. The one that is in Rhinebeck is behind the Red Barn. That's entirely within the town, so that's something we can discuss. We're going to send this out for referrals to HAPAC and CAB. Another issue that we had talked about in the pre-con was that there's an oil tank on the site.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if that's been removed or it was paused and it was still a question.
So the sellers are supposed to remove the oil tank, and the last I heard that they sent the permit to Red Hook by mistake, and so they were waiting to get, I don't know if it's come yet, but it's EnviroStar, they're supposed to ask for a permit, but they should have done it by now, but
So the tank hasn't been pulled.
it's not been pulled.
So, I'll defer to Melody and Craig and other board members, but it is a historic house, and I believe the tank is relatively close to the house. We had talked in the pre-con about the fact, obviously, the land where the tank is has already been disturbed, so there's no real issue there. But I think I'd just like to recommend that when the tank gets removed, if they find for some reason they've got to start digging further out because they find who knows what under the ground, once you get outside of, I don't know, a couple feet out from the tank itself, I think we need to start being more careful about how we dig. So something should, just take care when that tank's coming out, that if you get much further out than the width of the tank itself, that you need to probably talk to the planning board.
As she's explained, it's the current owner who will be responsible for removing it, so we're going to have to communicate that information to the owner. Not, the burden is not theirs to monitor it when it's coming out.
Good point.
I'll be there either way.
Okay.
So I'll also double up.
Well, what we could do, have they identified who will be doing the removal?
Yes, EnviroStar.
Okay, so we can, perhaps your comments can be forwarded through you to the owner, to EnviroStar, so that they understand the parameters of the work.
So if I am straight on this, EnviroStar has to get a permit from town of Rhinebeck, but it would just be a building permit for extracting the tank. And are there ever provisions in those, if the tank extraction is in association with the historic building? Is that ever done, or is it only building permits that come to us?
I don't know, but we can ask Brian how that goes and communicate this information to Ed.
Right, I think that's pretty much what I wanted. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of it. Make sure you're aware of it. As the applicant here, I know the owner's responsible, but you are the applicant before the planning board, so we want to make sure we don't run into any issues and have to, resolve something later on.
For whatever it's worth, I've had situations during sales where the tank is being removed and the attorneys have specified contractually as a rider that if it got too close to a foundation or something, that the buyer felt that that was too invasive, that it had to be abandoned, that a different measure had to be taken rather than removal.
Yeah.
So there could be just means for the real estate attorneys to add some point of reference of what the town is requiring to ensure that the seller is obligated to fulfill that.
I think the issue is when they extract the tank, they send an environmental specialist down to sample, to make sure the tank has not been leaking. If it has been leaking, then that requires getting rid of the contaminated soil, which could be, a huge excavation.
But they're going to have to do that whether it's abandoned or not.
Right.
The contamination is
Right,
a separate piece.
If there are archaeological resources, and that's where it comes up, is in association with historic building, we care about that. And we care about it if somebody is putting on an addition, but what about this? And it seems to be of a different character, so I don't know the answer.
Yeah, so I just want to make you aware of that, and I'll talk with the zoning administrator, and we'll make sure, when permits are pulled, that information's out there, but I want to make sure you're aware that, essentially, if you're digging out the tank, I think that's fine, but if we start going further out, then we may have to start just talking about making sure they're careful about how they dig and what they're looking for when they dig, because it is an old historic house. Yeah, so there is a floodplain on the property. I just wanted to note it is not an issue for this building, but you are putting proposing to put a child care center on the property of the floodplain, and it kind of runs toward the back of the property. Given storms we've had recently and all the discussions we've had about water in the town, I just want to make you aware of the fact that we have a pretty good slope here, but if you do decide to take kids out wandering around, walking around, you may find standing water back here, it may be pooling and it floods. I don't think it's going to come anywhere close to the building, but just be aware that there could maybe a lot of water back there after a big storm. And then, we talked about neighbor input. I was just curious if you talked to the neighbors at all yet?
Yeah, I did. I spoke to the neighbor, the Rhinebeck side. She wasn't jumping for joy, but she said it was fine. And I think she was aware that there was a need. And then the properties on the Red Hook side, they were really happy. They were fine. They said, I asked them to write a note too, but they said that they'll respond once you reach out to them.
So that'll happen as part of the mailing, so we'll have to go out. Just a couple other things, we do have, obviously we just discussed it, we have one fenced area in Rhinebeck and another in Red Hook, although, is it marked down here?
It might not be on this map.
Yeah, so the site plan has to show everything, yes, I don't see it on here, so I didn't realize there was another fenced area. You have this one right behind the building.
Yeah. Okay.
So anything that's in Red Hook is going to have to be here. Yeah, and obviously we'll have to pull the permits. It needs to be on the plan.
Yeah.
And I guess my only thought, being a planner and a parent is, you might not want to fence it over the absorption field for
No,
water
I
reasons.
mean, I
So,
can show you with my fingers,
Yeah.
it'll probably go, so I'd have a walkway here, and then it'll go until here and then back.
yeah, that definitely should be shown on the plans.
Okay.
Even though it is in Red Hook, you should include that because they're going to want to see the whole plan as well. So just submit one plan to both, and that way we'll both be kind of looking at the same thing.
Okay.
You will need a sign permit if you want to put a sign out front or do any signage for this use. So you'll have to talk to Brian about that. You can submit that now, or
So
you
there's an
can
existing sign.
still have to come back in to get a sign permit for your use.
Oh, okay.
So you can talk to Brian, zoning administrator, about that one. Like I said, you can apply now and bring it before the planning board. You can do it later, and he'll send it to the planning board for a referral.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be done now. I didn't see any details about a narrative of the existing two-story residence and kind of what you're planning to do. I know you talked about having teachers in there, but there wasn't a discussion of really how many. The town only allows 2 people per bedroom, and I wasn't sure exactly how many bedrooms were in there, so I don't know if you could provide the board with a little bit more detail, either tonight or in writing,
Yeah.
what the plans are for the use of that existing residential house.
Yeah, I was planning to, after the school opens, I was planning to offer it to teachers, affordable housing for teachers, they can live close to work. And it's a great benefit for them and for us to retain teachers long-term. So the listing and then the actual records have different numbers for the rooms. So I think it's two bedrooms in each unit.
Each unit?
Yeah, so there's a unit that comes on there's a dividing line here, and there's a unit here, and there's a unit back there.
And so this is where the lack of history comes in, because we just don't know what's there, but we know it was made into a duplex at some point. So part of this comes into the discussion, what you plan to do there, and getting some writing on it since we don't have a history on it.
Okay.
We may have to create that with you, so get it in writing, what's there, what you plan on using it for, how many bedrooms are in each.
Okay.
So we at least have a baseline to kind of work from moving forward, we can discuss it further.
What does the tax record say about that bedrooms? How many?
I don't know.
It has to be
I remember-
taxed for a certain number of bedrooms.
Well, look up the use code on this. I didn't look up the use code on this one. But yes, you're right, it would be taxed similar, but this one's interesting if you don't have a history on it. I don't know if it's taxed as a single family or duplex. So again, I'll talk with Brian and catch up with him on that. We're hoping we can get all that
Yeah, I know.
brought in so we can.
You would think when you start looking at the tax records here, that would indicate when you change.
We like only list based on what tax records say, so that there's no confusion, and as more importantly, we don't run into people using bedrooms illegally. But I know there's no records, but there must still be taxed with some volume of bedrooms.
So parcel access has listed as residential with commercial use 283. No, I'm not going to go through the actuals, that's going to take too long. So we'll have to look into that and see what's there. But regardless of what it is now, what you plan on doing with it is kind of what's important. That's what the planning board will want to know. And then,
Sorry, is that a narrative I should write up and send to
Yeah, if you can write a narrative of the proposed use of that, making sure that you discuss that it's a long-term rental for teachers, not a
Yeah.
short-term, although they are now permitted, but that's a whole different process.
Yeah.
So if it's a long-term rental for the teachers, just establish that this is proposed to be, long-term, rental units for them, and then we'll have that in the record.
Okay.
Just two other ones. You have the well shown here right next to the driveway.
So that's the previous one, existing.
Right, it says the existing will remain. I would just recommend putting something between it and the road. It's really close to the driveway.
Sorry, I think this was done before the soil testing, so the engineer and the Board of Health came after this, I guess, was made, and this, they want to abandon this well because the oil tank's right here,
Oh,
and they
okay.
want to drill a new well in this field. And this, abandon this one as well.
Okay, so the plans need to be updated to state that. I guess it's a little interesting, they're talking about putting it here, because I think these are septic lines. That's
That's,
not what's shown.
that's gonna get abandoned.
Yeah.
Right, but it was an old septic line, where we're not talking about putting a well in. But that's for county health, not for me. But that was going to be one of the questions that I did have about this, because I didn't see a label here, is what kind of happens with this septic in the island here? So you're going to abandon that and leave it in place. I'll leave it to county health.
Yeah, they're the ones who told us to do that.
So if this is going to be abandoned, then we don't have to worry about that. But typically, when you have a well that close to a driveway, I would say put in some bollards or rock or something so a car doesn't take the top off it and create issues in the path. It's cheaper to put something down. Okay. That's the summary of my 4 pages.
Okay, anybody
You're gonna
else have
copy
any
that.
thoughts or questions they weren't asked for
I
this?
have a question.
Of course.
Are you going to live in the house?
No.
Okay. So what I'm wondering is, how many teachers might live there?
It's a two-family house, so, I mean, it could be 2 teachers, if 2 teachers want to be roommates, maybe they could live there, I don't know how many, minimum 2
In the house, in
in
the
the
whole
house,
house?
yeah. One family, one teacher's family in each house.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
2 teachers who get along in one half a house.
Yeah,
So there were 2
sometimes
bedrooms.
if teachers want to be roommates, they could be a roommate in the house.
Okay.
But theoretically, up to possibly 4 people.
Up to 4.
4 teachers, if they have
Yes.
significant others, and it could be 8. But that's where,
Right.
the planning board reviewing one thing is one thing, but the building department's also gonna have to know what you're proposing to do, because the use is gonna change, because it's not a primary residence anymore. Now it's more like a commercial, it's associated with the school. So beyond planning, there are gonna be other things you're gonna have to look into, like related to what the use is, if the use is gonna change, for the purpose downstairs, tax department. But
So if I wasn't renting to teachers and I just was the landlord, how does that shift?
well, you will be a landlord. You're not living on the site. You're not, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I guess my question is if it's not associated with the business, how does that
I think the
change?
same information would be
Same, right, okay.
provided
That's my question.
as to how many rental units and how
Yep.
many people occupying the rental units will be in the building.
Okay.
Here I don't know that we get into who you're renting to.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I understand it's your business plan and I understand the wisdom of it, but that really isn't a reviewable
Okay.
part of this application.
No, not on our end, but the building department, again, when you say how many you want to do, you're probably going to have to get a fire inspection. They're going to want to make sure that it can house, up to 8 adults. You want to make sure you don't run afoul of any issues of how many non-residents can live together in a structure. There are
Yeah.
rules about that, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of beyond what we do here at the planning board, but that's all stuff that's going to wrap into this,
Got it.
this discussion with downstairs, because they just don't have anything to go on. But they
We
also need
need
to
to see parking a little more clearly.
The parking is on there, it's a little faint, I can zoom in. There are 11 spaces proposed. That was one other question I did have, I did skip over. So you can see the little hash marks here.
Sort of parallel
There
to
are
the driveway.
some spots up here.
Um,
So it totals 11, and that actually was one other question, but I did skip over. Does that 11 account for teachers who would live here, would have
Yes.
potential cars on site? So that's 4, you assume 4 spaces potentially for there, 2 to 4 spaces for this.
But
Could be more.
theoretically, the change could be if there are indeed teachers living in the house, then, there's not a double use of the parking lot. If other people are living in the house and then the teachers are driving in, it reduces the number of available parking spaces. So that will feed into your use of the building. So if you had 4 teachers, say, living in there, then those, you know, it's not employee parking, it's kind of a combination of employee and residential parking, versus if they go off to work somewhere else and then the teacher.
Which would be shared parking, right, and that is actually, thank you, Edna, because that's exactly what I wanted to point out. You don't really have 11 spaces for the kids when they come, you know, when the parents are dropping off in the morning, picking up in the evening, because you may have teachers who are taking up those spaces, you know, kind of all the time. I don't think it's an issue. I'm not an advocate of putting in a lot of extra parking if you don't need it.
Yeah.
I would say go with this. If you find you have a problem, you can always come back and talk to us later, because I would, you know, I think as we talked in the pre-con, I really was hoping we weren't going to see a whole lot of extra parking area, and as it is now, we're going to paved from dirt. So I'm not advocating for more spaces, I'm saying you're going to take some up with the teachers who are there, so.
Kids don't drive themselves.
And the beauty of the U-shaped driveway is it allows for a quick drop off.
What is the age of the children who?
Yeah, so one classroom will have children from 18 months to 3 years, and the second classroom, the children will be 3 years to up to 6 years.
Those numbers were all in the application, and I know you're talking with state ed about that as well for your.
OCFS, yes.
Yeah, OCFS for your permit.
The building in the sort of melon color there, that's going to be the school.
Yes.
What is that currently used as?
So I think the last allowable use was an antique store.
Okay, that it is the place that I'm looking at, right?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff on the front porch.
Yeah.
and-
It's like this one.
Yeah, okay. So it's not like anyone's being displaced from modest housing. You know, you got the 2-family that's on the adjacent property, and that will continue to be a rental property of some sort, either the teachers or the other people.
Right, there's no one in there right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, as an aside, I believe the county historian gave a talk a while ago about bootlegging and liquor consumption in Red Hook, and something related to this property going way back, so there's some history there.
Is that Will Tatum?
Yeah.
Or-
Irrelevant to the conversation, but interesting if it happens.
You never know what you're going to find.
Anybody else? You might find some bottles, who knows?
That happened upstate.
Anything else? Okay, let's move to the draft procedural resolution.
So draft procedural resolution for the board's consideration tonight for site plan special use permit for the Wildflower School for conversion to reuse of the existing structures, daycare, and on-site housing for teachers at 7805 and 7091. Accepting the application supporting documents for further review, classifying the action as type 2, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. We'll schedule the public hearing for June 17th. That should actually say 6:05, so I'll fix that. We'll send this to the CAB for review, to HAPAC for review, and to Dutchess County Planning since it is a site plan, and we need 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
I'll go with Sean. May I hear a motion to accept the resolution? So moved. Second? Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes the new application portion of the evening. Sorry for you folks that had to sit through this, but we appreciate your patience. The first public hearing this evening is that of Sean and Barry, 373 Mill Road, site plan review and special use permit for the installation of the pool.
Joanne Barry, representing Sean Barry.
Do we need them to review this, or are we all comfortable? Jim, maybe you just want to put it up and I think so you recall this, and it was pretty straightforward. And if Jim doesn't have anything new to add, I will.
No, I don't. So this was the application on Mill Road for the pool that was in front of the house. Remember we talked about the removal of trees, and that was a concern. When we originally got this as a referral from the ZBA, we found out that was for insurance purposes. We took a look at it, had some discussions about the visibility from the road, because it's a scenic road, which is why it is here in front of the planning board. I have no new comments. I think we covered it last time. It was mainly just a scenic view shed issue from the road.
Site visit.
See, I did the site visit with George from the CAB. My first concern was visibility from the road. And because when you go south of the road, you have to actually turn and look, and you can see very little. And if you're coming north, you don't really see anything at all from the road. When you're down at the location, and you see vehicles driving by, they seem farther away than they do on the road. So I think, even though it's in front of the house, and I did have a concern about that in the beginning, it's fine where it is. My only recommendation was that they did put in maybe a little railing on the steps coming up, the driveway up, because there's no railing there. That was my only recommendation.
Anything else, Sharon?
No, the trees that were removed had to be removed, and it looks good in there. So
I'm not connecting to the steps and where that is. I'm just trying to find it.
No, sorry.
They're existing? Those are the...
What, there's
Sorry.
2 steps? I think there's 2 steps going
There's
up.
four stone steps going
Four stone
to the
steps.
porch, but the pool is on the other side of the porch. Those steps don't go directly to the pool. They go to the porch.
But it was just getting from the driveway up
To
to
the
where you had to
porch.
go to the pool. And it was like nothing to grab when you got a bad knee.
Well, I don't know that that's within our purview, but
But that was my only recommendation.
okay. Anyone else?
Was there a CAB?
Well, she said she went with George Baker, but I didn't see her.
I didn't see one either.
I didn't see one come in, did you? So they were represented but chose not to write a report.
Yeah, I don't think that I saw a report on this property.
Okay.
When was the site visit?
Fridays ago, like about 3 weeks
ago
ago.
as well?
Okay.
That's a whole different other story now.
Never mind.
We'll keep it off the record.
Yeah, we won't go there.
Well, it's very intriguing. All right, anyone else? Well, if not, is there anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this application? Hearing none, may I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Jim, I think you have, it's looking like it says draft procedural resolution.
Yeah, that's an approval. I apologize.
So we're looking at a draft approval resolution.
Yeah, you can just,
Yep.
I just made a couple edits. So it's a draft approval resolution from John and Barry for site plan for installation of the pole 373 Mill Road, reaffirming the proposed actions type 2 under seeker. Based on the review of submitted information, reports from planning board members, finds the work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of chapter 125. With respect to the application for site plan approval, finding the proposed work and intended use consistent with Town Code chapter 125, and approving the application inclusive of the materials dated March 23rd, 2024, and the plan by Decker survey dated November 20th, 2023. Authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the submission materials upon the applicant's satisfaction of those 3 conditions below.
Can I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion second, I will hold the board. Craig?
Aye.
Edna? Aye. Tom?
Aye.
Elise? Aye. Sharon? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
And I'm all aye. She's approved. And what nice parents to come and represent her.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
The next public hearing, actually the last public hearing of the evening is Ruby's 3718 Route 9G, sign permit and site plan amendment.
Good evening, Seth Stipple with Mark Kaminsky, PE LSPC, here this evening to represent Rudy's 9G Properties LLC, the owner and applicants of 3718 Route 9G. It's a 131-acre parcel on the east side of Route 9G in the Office Research Park zoning district here in the town of Rhinebeck. So everybody's pretty familiar with this project, or most people on the board. I do see that we have some new members, and potentially maybe some people weren't here the last time we visited this. It was 2 years ago, approximately. So it has been a little while, so maybe a refresher would be beneficial for everyone, but I do understand obviously that your time is valuable, so I'll take your lead on some of that. But we would like to walk through just a few slides at the beginning to kind of refresh everybody's memory. This is a sign application that is also portions of a site plan amendment. Really, it's just for the signs and their location. We did go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We did require a series of variances for this project, which are unique. We were granted that approval back in January, and we're coming back to revisit the final site sign approval tonight. So maybe we can just walk through a couple things. Jim, if you do the next slide.
I'm going to use some real technology
And
tonight.
I got hooked up to my computer, so I think the error is.
Perfect. Perfect. For anyone who's not familiar, we came to this board for phase 1 approval, which is for the demolition and reconstruction of an existing building located in this area with existing parking and an entrance. We came back to this board for new construction because looking at the old building, it made more sense to do new construction. Phase 1 of the project is that reconstruction for the Subaru services. There is a phase 2 plan that will move the Ford service and the Chrysler Jeep Dodge service to a phase 2 building potentially in the future. The balance of the site would be any kind of other approval, which would be done under the ORP zoning district requirements and would require site plan and special use permit from this board. Next slide. So this is that phase 1 area. You can see it highlighted here. It just gives you an idea of where we are on the property. So what has occurred since 2022? Just want to briefly run through this because quite a bit has occurred, which is why it's been 2 years. So in May, July, we were pursuing the variance application after we came to this board and we got the recommendation to do so. In August of 2022, we adjourned to an unspecified date. We did that because we came back and requested approval extension from this board and then also amended the site plan for new construction. That was that time. So in September 2022, that extension was granted and we were able to go ahead and build the new building. The new building is under construction and we're moving along very well, hoping to be in there maybe August, September. In August 22 to June, we began doing the bidding process for that, so that consumed us. So we had an evolution and a little bit of the signage details, so I'll talk about that. And then, we just had formalized kind of all the project and the bidding. So then in June of 2023, we came back to this board for what was the storage building for the oil, which you may be familiar with. So that was an additional structure behind it, not visible. That was granted, and we got approval for that in July. In September 22 to today, or September 2023, excuse me, we were investigating alternative locations, specifically on Route 9G. We wanted to take a look and see if we were able to work with the DOT to have either the sign closer to the roadway. The existing freestanding monument sign was quite close to the road. DOT is no longer offering any kind of leasing of sign space or any kind of sign in their right-of-way. They're just not doing that anymore. They're not granting those. So we exhausted that, and that's no longer possible. In June through October 2023, we refined the sign details with just a few minor changes, which I will talk about. We went back to the Zoning Board of Appeals. It took from October to January to get that Zoning Board of Appeals approval, and pretty much, from now on, we're here today. Next slide here. So when we're talking about the types of signage at the Rugies, we have 3 main types of signs. We have what is a freestanding monument sign. There was an existing one on the site, as well as 2 billboards located on Route 9G. And then we're proposing to replace that with a single freestanding monument sign. There are also building signage located on the building. We're proposing a series of building signs as well. There are also directional signage. There was existing directional signage, and we're proposing both safety and directional signage interior to the site. So those are the types of signage we're talking about today. So just want to compare the old stuff that you had seen back in July 2022 to the new stuff. So this was the concept of the original sign that we were proposing at that time. Since we've gone through the bidding process, we're now working with Timely Signs, who's a local sign producer, and they have designed what is a sign cabinet. So it just looks slightly different from the original, and as well as the base, we've just kind of refined that detail a little bit. One of the other changes that we need to mention to you tonight is the previous fixtures had a gooseneck fixture. Just looking at the ability of a gooseneck fixture to adequately light a sign like this and not have glare and spill, and then also just the height of how they were mounted. We've transitioned to what is more of an appropriate sign lighting system, which is basically the ellipticar, so it's a more linear and direct sign. They use these in museums for lighting paintings or on sides of buildings to light signs, as well as for freestanding monument signs. So that is a change we just wanted to note. Previously, we were proposing building-mounted, wall-mounted signs. There were 4 of them. The Rugi sign here, all on the far left, there's one change. That sign had originally been the kind of branding that Rugi's has. In conversations with Subaru, they've requested that we change that to the Subaru Blue with a little bit less of the branding from the Rugi's. So that change is now proposed here. The other change, you'll see that the fixtures were previously gooseneck. Those are now the ellipticar, more direct sign lighting. And then lastly, on one side we had something, a sign that said Express and Service in it, and we've removed that to now just say Express, so that actually reduced our building sign. Lastly, we do have directional signage and safety signage, as I mentioned. There was just a small change in the quantities of these, and that's really the only change. There was one stop bar was added, and I believe there was a reduction of a handicap sign because it was not necessary. The proposal for the freestanding monument sign is to be located, and it was approved by the ZBA 1 foot from the property line, outside of the DOT right-of-way, on our side of the property, located in an area that's adjacent to, on the north side of the redone entrance. We did redo the entrance, and many of you may notice there's also a turning lane now on Route 9G, so that work has been completed. The sign will have slots for the existing businesses going in and the anticipated future business, as well as maybe any other tenant. The way that the sign functions is it actually is tiles, so they are removable, so you can actually take them out. When we did the calculation for the new signage, we actually took the entire square footage of the entire sign. We're no longer counting lettering or lettering size. We're taking the entire dimensions, length and width, or height, excuse me. So that just changed the amount of freestanding sign area that we had. Noting along Route 9G, previously there was, this is visible signage along Route 9G. There was 188 square feet. We're proposing with this, 113 square feet. So visible signage along Route 9G is actually reduced by 40% with the proposal. The remainder of the signage is interior to the property. This gives you an idea of what had existed along Route 9G. That was the old entrance sign. You can see how close it was to the road. And then there were the 2 billboard signs. I'd just like to note that all of the existing signage has been removed. So the remainder of the signage is actually interior to the site. So these are building mounted signs, as I had mentioned. This is the western facade, so that would be this area here. All of the customer traffic comes in, has directional signage that indicates where they should go. They actually drive into this building where Rugi's attendant takes the vehicles and brings them to where they need to go, and then the customer is always only in this contact point. Maybe they're picked up for a ride and then they leave, or they return later to get their vehicle here, and then they leave in that same method too. So the signs that are shown on the wall, the building mounted signs, we have the 8 square foot Rugi sign, we have a 25.51 square foot Subaru sign. There are some of these that are required through the Subaru branding. This is certainly one of those, as well as the Service and the Express. These are kind of requirements from the brand in order to have their name, to use their name on the site. So the Service sign is 6 square feet, almost 7 square feet, and same with the Express sign. So just noting that we did receive the variances for those. There was one portion of the variance that it's about sign area, and then also these fixtures are actually mounted at 18 feet 2 inches. And that is 3 feet 2 inches above the maximum fixture mounting height of 15 feet in town of Rhinebeck. So we received a variance for that fixture location. So this was the existing, building mounted signage that used to be on the site. Interior to the site, we have a series of directional signage. Some of these are for safety, some of them are just need. For instance, at any intersection, you need obviously stop signs, stop bars. We also have some signage that you would need to direct people around. The intention is to have this be a service drive, so all of the larger trucks or anything delivering, whether it's UPS or anything like that, would all use the service drive entrance. So again, only customer facing. So at this point here, you needed something to indicate which direction people are going. And that continues through the site. So I can go through each one individually, but mostly that's what they are. They're to say, go left or right if you're a customer, go left or right if you are a delivery person, and then also just to indicate some various smaller things. There was a lot of directional signage existing on the site. As you can see, this is that intersection that I'm pointing out there, so you can clearly see that there was necessary for some direction at that point. And then elsewhere on the site, there were a lot of other signage. So we're kind of, where it's necessary, using those, and where it's not, trying to place them in better areas. One thing about safety signage, for instance, stop signage, they're a certain dimension and size so that people see them. So that, that was one of the things about the directional signage, is that they were over the 2 square foot maximum. And that's things like the entrance where we were just looking at that needed some direction, and we need a bigger sign to do that, or even stop signs, because they're 2.25 square feet each. So a lot of things kind of went into the math about, the signage area. We did have this reviewed by the zoning administrator, and the zoning administrator determined the variances that we were required to have. So I can just go through this quickly. This is the permanent sign regulations in the ORP district. Not more than 2 primary signs should be permitted. 1 freestanding sign not to exceed 12 square feet, and 1 identity on the wall or principal facade. The maximum total signage per establishment should be determined by the formula and should not exceed 30 square feet. So Rugies requires 6 area variances. There's an area variance for the additional surface area, so 130.83 square feet, exceeding the allowable 30 square feet. And then for the area variance for the 3 additional signs, where 2 is allowed, the variance for the 13.17 square feet over the directional signage, of which there are 10, and they're supposed to be 2 square feet, so we had the variance for that. And then there are 4 6-inch, what is that variance for? 4 6-inch, 4 feet 6 inches of height above the allowed 6 feet. And then the 19 feet allowed, this is for the property line, to have the sign, freestanding monument sign be 1 foot off the property line. And then there are the 3 feet 2 inches for the mountable fixture on the building at 18 feet 2 inches. So that was the series of variances that were requested and granted. So we do have obviously, the plan that we had provided, which summarizes in the table all of the various signs, their locations, and their square footage. So overall, the site is proposing 200 square feet of signage. Previously at the site there was 241 square feet, so across the entire site there's actually a 17% reduction in signage. So that's pretty much the summary of what we're here to do today. This is just a comparison of what was there before and what is here now. So open it up to any questions or public comment.
Thanks, Seth. So it is my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but it's my opinion that since the ZBA has approved the sign package, essentially there's not a whole lot left for the planning board to do. They've essentially approved everything that has been asked. Well, they've approved everything before you, I should say. So unless someone has a very specific concern with what's been proposed from a site plan perspective, I really think, since the ZBA has already approved it, it is effectively approved and needs minor discussion and approval by this board, unless anyone disagrees. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but that's my...
I don't disagree.
Yeah, well, and the one thing that you explained is the big monument sign with the removable panels. You're not counting the words on the panel, you're counting the whole thing.
That's correct.
So like if you kick Ford out and put in Daihatsu or something like that, it doesn't change the calculus at all. It's all within that same sign envelope. So that would be the only thing is, going forward, it's going to be the same sign, within those parameters.
Absolutely.
Was the site visit conducted?
Years ago, maybe?
Years ago?
Not recently.
Well, if there aren't any, and
Yeah, I went to that, I did CAD. That was a long time ago.
all right.
As CAB member, you were there, I believe, right, at that time, Representative? Yeah.
If there's nothing from the planning board, is there anyone here from the public wishing to comment? If not, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. Jim, you have a draft approval resolution,
Yes.
which I think you could
I will summarize.
summarize.
So for the planning board sign permit, site plan amendment for the signage, for the facade of the Subaru dealership, as well as the signs out along Route 9G. Reaffirming the action as type 2 under seeker, based upon review of the submitted information, including reports from planning board members, finding the proposed work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of chapter 125. Item number 3 here is just referencing the ZBA finding, the summary finding paragraph. I'm not going to read that. It states why they did what they did. Number 4, with respect to the application for the permit, the board recommends the zoning administrator approve the application subject to any conditions or requirements set forth by the ZBA. And with respect to the application for site plan approval, asking the board to find the proposed work and use consistent with Town Code Chapter 125, including the Phase 1 sign permit, and approving that plan, and authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign it, subject to the 3 conditions listed below.
Can I have a motion? Second. Motion and second. I'll poll the board, Craig.
Aye.
Edna?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Joyce? Aye. Sharon? Aye. And I vote aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time this evening.
Where are the signs?
The last public hearing for this evening, which was scheduled, was wireless edge Verizon. This was for the 3866 Route 9G location. And as you know, we have requested that a withdrawal of that application has been made. So I'm just noting that for the record. And then the last thing, Jim, is the...
I think we need to close the public hearing
Oh,
and just
okay.
acknowledge that withdrawal publicly. I think would be good.
All right, may I have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then following that, we will honor the requested withdrawal of the application. All right, and then the last thing is a timeline extension for Mr. Alexander.
Correct. So this just came in. Alexandrian was in a while ago there for a minor subdivision. They had approval, and then if the board remembers, we actually did a reapproval back in December. That 180 days is expiring on June 1st, and so we came back in now asking for an additional extension. I think it's related to the Windy Land Trust, maybe among other things. So asking for an extension to essentially get all the conditions taken care of before you come
It's kind
in.
of the easement.
Stamp and sign, right.
Yeah.
South Old Post Road,
Yeah.
like south by the four lane?
It's Old Post Road by the Triple Barracks.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that was tied up with a Winnicke.
In the back part, yeah, over the hill.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
And I think, I don't know whether it's run into any snags, but I don't think they've been able to complete the easement itself.
So he's asking for more time. The subdivision code permits the planning board to grant 2 90-day extensions on the subdivision approval. So we could either do 90 days, a 90 days extension, or I guess you could approve 2 90-day extensions for a total of 180, which either get us to August 30th or November 28th, 2024. However, he also has a wetlands permit, and that permit will expire in September. So I was kind of thinking that maybe the thing to do is to give it 90 days to August 30th, and then if nothing has been done by August, he's going to have to come back in for the wetlands anyway. So maybe that would, timing-wise, actually work out this time. So we can come back in and then we can talk about what we have to do in terms of extensions for both the subdivision and the wetland in August or September.
Okay.
So I would recommend 90 days, I guess is what we suggest.
Could I hear a motion? So moved. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I think that, and that's to do the 90 days is what we agree on.
Yeah.
So until August 30th.
There's not here, no other new business, so could I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you very much. Good evening.